Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome to the Clinical Engineering Division IFMBE Digital Health webinar. This is the September 2023 webinar. Data security is the process of safeguarding digital information throughout its entire life cycle. It covers hardware, software, storage devices, and user devices, access and administrative controls, and organizations' policies and procedures. By aligning data security and patient safety actions, the health professionals, staff, physicians, clinical engineers, managers, nurses, etc., we contribute to ensure continuity of effective delivery of high-quality healthcare, and we respond to the patient and the community needs. This presentation is aimed then on improving and contributing to these strategic issues in healthcare. Please note that we will start with the presentations. At the end of the presentations, we will attend answer questions that you kindly will set through the chat. It means in the chat you are free to set your questions or comments, and at the end will be attend the answers. This is then the time to start with our first speaker. It is my pleasure to welcome now engineer Nader Hammoud. Nader Hammoud is a biomedical engineer with 3 degrees in biomedical engineer and an MBA. He created departments from null to be the base of more than $60 million of equipment. He is also an active member of Health Technology Management Community and member of the Technology Management Council at AME. Nader is the co-chair of the Education Committee at the American College of Clinical Engineering, ACCE. He won the California Health Technology Manager of the Year on 2018 and is recognized by ECRI and FDA for efforts in the domain of consulting biomedical engineer with multitask and multi-skill experiences to facilitate, follow up, and manage huge amount of administrative and technical data. Nader is an expert in information technology field and its impact on medical and biomedical domains, and demonstrated globally exceptional communication skills to overwhelm and sustain respect with personnel down and up the hierarchy ladder. Specialties: biomedical engineering, management IT. Nader Hammoud currently is VP of Support Services for San Francisco Health Network. Welcome, Nader. The floor is yours.
Good morning, that's my time, and good afternoon and good evening for everyone elsewhere in the world. Thank you, Rossana, for the introduction. I appreciate it. So today's topic, as Rossana indicated, it's one of the most growing concerns in our world today. I'll try to be as brief as possible, but for the sake of understanding why this is so risky, I'll go through a bit of history and then what we are doing today. Thinking of what did we do as healthcare technology or clinical engineers in the past, it was a requirement that you needed to know and to be skilled in electronics to do board level repairs. Those were the repairs and the requirements for clinical engineers. You needed to be skilled in mechanics, pneumatics. The equipment used to be standalone equipment. If you have a monitor, it's just that monitor that dealing with this patient. You don't need to worry about anything else. Later on, we start to have centralized monitoring, but historically, it's been just you're dealing with one device. If it fails, you fix its boards and you deal with it. And another thing is that's important that changed is in the past, it was unique features per device. So if you needed an SpO2 monitor, you would need to buy an SpO2 separate monitor. If you need an EtCO2 monitor, you would need to buy a separate EtCO2 monitor. So all these things in the past, it was very simple, way less complicated, required lots of hard work and electronic skills to be able to deal with the equipment. Well, if we jump into the present, we'll see things starting to be a bit different. Now, electronics is no longer a huge requirement. I know lots of biomedical engineers, successful biomedical engineers, and they don't have the electronic skill that's required. All that you're required to have is just a general idea of how electronics works, so you can actually deal with the equipment and understand if there's a failure, how to manipulate it. But today, if something fails, all you do is you order the whole board and you just swap the board. The knowledge, the deep down board level knowledge is no longer required. Mechanics, now you have to understand not just the mechanical aspect of the device, but how you automate that. How do you link those mechanics into a program, and when everything gets triggered? The same thing applies to pneumatics. It's not just a pump that's pushing pressure or creating vacuum. It's linked to a program that's actually controlling that. The equipment that used to be standalone now is no longer standalone. The number of equipment that's connected to the network is growing by the day. So that's a new world that we're getting into from a clinical engineering perspective. In the last 5 to 10 years, now your device is connected. It's becoming smarter, and we'll talk about smart as well. Devices as well are becoming multi-features. So in the past, you need to have 3, 4 monitors to monitor the vitals or different aspects from the patients. Today, you need just one monitor, even if you're EtCO2. Now, the defibrillators, they have the capability of doing SpO2 and EtCO2, and some of them even more advanced. So the devices are getting smarter and smarter in a way that each single device now is capable of doing multi-parameters and not depending on just one single parameter, meaning the device is getting complicated and software dependent. Because to be able to have those multi-features, you have to have a smart system inside. This is why it's becoming software dependent. Also, devices are becoming smart, self-aware. Most of the devices that are smarter today, they do their own self-test. If it fails, it can tell you what is the error code, what happened, why am I failing, which is way different than the past. And this is all back to the advantages of the advancement and information technology integrated into the devices. And the bottom line for all these advances, all these changes, as much as it's huge and improvement, it's opening our medical device to be a point of entry to the healthcare delivery organization network. Now, our medical device is no longer just a medical device. It's a connected device. It's a possible point of entry. It's a point of weakness that could leave the health organization vulnerable. So this is the changes that are happening and how we need to catch up with. Now, the most important thing now, as you see yourself today, 10 years ago, we didn't need to be as much integrated and speaking the same language as IT. But in today's world, it's totally different. We must be on the same page. We must be coordinating very firmly and in continuous basis. I found this picture. It does represent the things we're dealing with. Clinical engineering, they are results focused or event driven. We focus on making sure that the equipment are safe for the patient and available for the patient. That's our number one priority. On the IT side, they are process-driven, process-focused. They focus on following their process. They implement the process and they follow that process. It doesn't matter if they will not get to the end or not. What they care about more is the process itself, because of their goals are different than our goals. So that change in focus, that change in what drives you to support an organization makes a huge gap that we must attend to. And the only way to fix that is actually simple communication. Speaking the differences between IT and clinical engineers, IT's challenges are especially if you think from a clinical engineer's perspective, their challenges are we are having vulnerable equipment on site without protection. Sometimes we receive equipment in the hospital and they wouldn't know about it until after the fact, or until there's something that happened and then, oh, we have this device. Their concerns are that they always receive last call minutes, and they always feel like they're in firefighting mode when they're dealing with medical equipment, which for us is true because most of our calls are related to immediate response. It is firefighting mode, but they're not used to that, so they don't like that. Another challenge is the gray area. There's a huge gray area because now we're dealing with medical equipment. Where does IT start the owner of these devices or the owner of the problem troubleshooting and addressing the resolution? And where does Biomed deal with that? And I'll talk about the solution for that. And lastly, with the IT challenges is they lack a patient-side comfort. They're not comfortable in dealing with equipment next to the patient. Think of an anesthesia machine in the OR room that has a all-in-one PC for charting next to it. The biomedical engineer or the clinical engineer would be very comfortable walking into that OR room. They know where to avoid, they know where to stand, they know how to manipulate, they know how to communicate with everyone in the room, and they're comfortable approaching the anesthesia machine even while it's operational. IT, they are not as comfortable. They cannot get into the room. They fear of approaching, and it's rightful so, because it's not part of their education to understand all these aspects in the healthcare facility. Where clinical engineering challenges related to IT is that most of the time equipment show up out of nowhere when people rent equipment or something. So that creates a gap that we have a device that we haven't checked. Lack of timely response from IT. When you request some help from IT, you will not receive the same responsiveness that you would expect when you call a biomedical engineer because they follow their process. Again, the gray area of responsibility is a huge thing. And lack of unified fields between CMMS and information security. So now information security from IT, they build their database, their CMDB, and they know all the IP addresses and the MAC addresses of everything that's in the organization. But there's no way we can map this together to make sure that what they're talking about or what they're seeing vulnerability, we can identify it as a medical device using our asset number or our CMMS. And speaking of the gray area, in today's world, we should have zero gray area because you can eliminate that by simply assigning ownership. Once you assign ownership, we can easily overcome this problem. And I have done some presentations just about gray area, so it's a huge topic. I'm more than happy to answer questions. As for what are the solutions to help bridge that gap and address those issues that we are walking into the technology is coming to us and it's getting more and more and more invasive into our medical equipment. And we have that gap in coordination between CED and IT. How can we address that? There are some technology solutions in the market. One of them is the Internet of Things cybersecurity solution for medical equipment. There's lots of vendors. The top that comes to my mind, example, are Simile, Mitigate. Those are very popular in the United States. So these solutions can actually sit on the network, listen passively to all the communication that's happening over the network, and they can actually identify what is the device, the manufacturer, the serial number, the model, its location. All this information can be identified just by having those smart devices listening on the network. Now, the challenge with that is now you have all this information, you have all this technology, and you're listening to the network. You know what's the status of your equipment, you know what's vulnerable, you know what's at risk, but what are you going to do about it? This is where cybersecurity advisors comes into play, because most organizations, they do not have the bandwidth in CED to actually have a couple of people dedicated to monitor all this activity and take action and address it. And we have seen organizations, big organizations, they implemented the IoT cybersecurity solution, but then they end up with thousands of vulnerabilities, thousands of events that happen, and no one is available to do anything about it. So all that they're doing is that they know we're vulnerable, but we're not doing anything about it. And the last piece is it's extremely important in-house coordination between CED and IT, because without that coordination, you will be lacking. The advantages of implementing these solutions is you'll have safe network, visibility of active equipment, because as I said, you will have proper identification based on what the device is communicating out. You can also monitor the utilization of the equipment to know if the device is being overutilized or underutilized, and it will help in identification of the location because it's based on where it's pinging the access points. With that, I end my session and hand it over back to Rossana. Thank you.
Thank you, Nader. It was an amazing presentation, and I'm sure about the value of the next minutes to exchange with you regarding these topics. Now, we are going to welcome our next speaker. She is Nana Omod, an engineering professional and technology enthusiast with a state registration as a clinical scientist. She serves as the head of clinical engineering services at Cleveland Clinic London and a co-chair of the Medical Equipment Governance Committee. She is the recipient of the Most Innovative London Caregiving Award in 2021 and the prestigious CEO Global Caregiver Award in 2022. Nana is an alumna of the 2018 Chief Scientific Officers WISE Fellowship Program, where she stood out as one of the select 4 women chosen in the UK. Nana played a pivotal role in the successful delivery of the new 184-bed hospital build project and an outpatient, where she directed the Medical Equipment Activation Program. She holds an BSc in Physics from Kawama Nuram University of Sciences and Technology, Ghana, and a Master in Science in Biomedical Engineering from Brunel University, UK, and a PGDIP in Healthcare Sciences, Leadership and Management from Alliance Manchester Business School. Nana is deeply passionate about collaborating with cross-functional teams to innovate and enhance patient and caregiver experiences. Welcome, Nana Omod. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rossana, for that introduction. Good afternoon from where I am, and good morning, good evening to everyone on the call. I will share my screen. Okay, thank you, Nada, for that presentation. It's a great presentation to follow, and it takes me into the reason why I chose the topic on the role of clinical engineering in managing medical devices, cybersecurity risks.
Nana, I'm sorry, I cannot see your presentation yet. Okay, now it is done. Please make it bigger.
Thank you very much.
Okay, go ahead.
So to continue, this is the I have the privilege of directing the medical device activation program in a new build hospital. Therefore, the areas that Nada refers to as gray areas, maybe areas or challenges or lessons that we've learned through the process of implementing a new hospital, and my own lessons following the WannaCry in 2017, and how that changed my perspective in how I manage medical devices as an engineer. So as we all know, clinical engineers, we are responsible for making sure that equipment are safe in the environment, to be used on a patient and to be used by the caregivers. However, we do know that technology is advancing, and as medical devices have now moved from standalone devices, as we've heard. And so we are faced with challenges. There is an evolving landscape. And what does that mean to us as clinical engineers? We do know that some of the key trends which has resulted in growth of connected medical devices includes healthcare consumerism, changes in patient expectation, and just the complexity and changes around patient demographics. That has led to rapid adoption of digital health tools such as the EPR, remote monitoring, medical device wearables. And in all of this, medical devices form the core part of it. And as clinical engineers, we are responsible for ensuring that these connected medical devices are safe for our patients and are secure to be used within our environment. I picked up a quote from a director of ECRI, which says, patient safety is on the mind of everyone. And that's what we do really well as clinical engineers. And technology safety is something that's sometimes left behind. And so I also looked at ECRI and I realized that right after the WannaCry, ransomware, cybersecurity threats, data security is been on the list of the top 10 health technology hazards for since 2018. And all organizations have to react or have risk assessments in place to remove these risks. So for clinical, I just want to look at where we are as clinical engineers. We are responsible for the life cycle management of medical devices. So from strategic procurement right through to integration of devices into the system, the ongoing monitoring to save disposal of or decommissioning of the equipment, and then goes back into the cycle, which is identification of need. In all of this, clinical engineers are the bridge that act between the healthcare technology and the data security. And so at the intersection of medical devices and data security are the core things that we do to ensure that medical devices are safe. So from device selection and procurement, asset management, risk assessment, training and education, having the appropriate incident response. Every clinical engineer at every point in their career may be leading, supporting, or partnering with a group of whether internal or external stakeholders. And we all have the responsibility of thinking about the data security just due to how the technology is changing. So I will go ahead and pick up a couple, because of time, I will pick up a couple of practical things that we do daily and how we can incorporate data security into it. So one area which we do is onboarding of devices. So right from selection, procurement, then to the onboarding of devices. From a selection standpoint, a clinical engineer assesses and understands the clinical workflow and also the proposed and the clinical need. With this information, the clinical engineer is able to work with the vendor to provide an architecture which can be designed and integrated within your network. To be able to do that, we use documents such as the risk assessment, which vendors have to complete. We need to assess the features of the medical devices. We also perform the risk assessment and identify any potential hazards or vulnerabilities. Through this process, we're able to understand what security documentation and or support that we need, and also assign responsibilities, whether it's the vendor or whether it's the organization, which is either CE, IT, or the stakeholder within the internal organization responsible for this. And as part of the risk assessment process as well, we collaborate with CEs, collaborate with the IT security applications infrastructure to implement robust security measures, vulnerability testing. One thing that I would like to highlight on this slide is that all clinical engineers should be aware of their IT infrastructure and the security tools that are being used to monitor any device on the infrastructure. So we have, for instance, Order, where we can collect all the MAC addresses from your devices and treat it and also link it to your asset management system. For devices that are controlled and are within our domain, we have semantics to do the antivirus scanning and to be able to detect any threats promptly. It helps with our first line troubleshooting because if for instance, we get a phone call that data isn't going into the patient record, if you're aware of any sort of security updates, you start working back. The first thing is you look at the device, it's okay. You work back with your knowledge within the infrastructure. We start to highlight which areas could be the problem areas and then liaise with the relevant caregivers or the vendors to be able to help with the issue resolution. Also, asset management and onboarding is what we do. After WannaCry, it really changed how I look at equipment management. And so some of the changes that I adopted in our acceptance testing form is to include things around our GDPR regulation, which is making sure that any device that is coming in, we've clearly documented if it's able to store or transmit patient identifiable information and questions, and also answer questions around the network, etc. This information was then used to build a module in our asset management database, which then enabled us to assign responsibilities as well when it comes to security patching, antivirus updates, etc., software updates, etc. So in summary, we know that as clinical engineers, we have a role to play. We do some of it as our bread and butter. So for assets, we know our asset inventory because that is how we are able to manage our maintenance, our planned maintenance, and also have asset histories, etc. With the knowledge that we have within the market, the current climate, and also with incidents, histories, we are aware of some of the threats that we are faced with, such as user error, malware functioning, and etc. And then with the vulnerabilities assessment, we are able to identify the behaviors of the device. Without the controls, which is security by design, and continuous monitoring, we are faced with a risk. So my key takeaway here is clinical engineers are vital in ensuring patient safety and data security in medical device management, and collaboration with both internal and external stakeholders, ongoing education because we have to keep abreast with where technology is going, and a continuous balance between security, privacy, and innovation are vital for the future of clinical engineering. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nana. It was a nice presentation indeed. I am going now to invite our next speaker. Let's go now to our third and final speaker, Petrick Davoglio. Petrick is a clinical engineer, specialist focused in imaging diagnostic equipment, adverse events, investigation, and risk management in medical equipment network. Petrick Davoglio is responsible for technology management and new technology evaluation and the project manager for new equipment installation projects and technical support for engineers and technicians teams. Petrick Davoglio has a master's degree in business administration at the Fundación Armando Álvarez, Penteado, FAAP, Brazil, and a postgraduate degree in clinical engineering at the Instituto Israelita de Ensino, Albert Einstein, Brazil. He also has a major in electric engineering with a specialization in telecommunications at the Instituto Nacional de Telecomunicaciones, INATEL, Brazil. It's my honor to present Petrick Davoglio and invite you, Petrick, to be in charge of this part of this event. Go ahead.
Just sharing my. Good morning for all. I'm Petrick Davoglio. I'm a clinical engineer, as Rossana introduced me. Thank you, Rossana. First, I want to thank the invitation. I'm very happy to be part of this. And second, I apologize about my English. It's a kind of limited, so I will try to do my best here. Well, just starting, the first question, why choosing crimes for a virtual world? Well, it's a home office modality. There's no geographic barriers. I can attack anyone from everywhere. There's no risks for my physical health. Nobody will get shot by internet. And more, we don't even need to change the money world. Bitcoin is accepted everywhere. So it's much better to make crimes over the internet. But why hospitals? We know cyber attacks are increasing in all areas, but why it's so accelerated in healthcare area? It's simple. Just because it's more lucrative and easy to get information from hospitals. Let me try to explain. Why so lucrative? Especially because it protects healthcare information worth a lot of money. But why? I can give some reasons. Because it's immutable, so this information can be used for a long time with the same value, different for a credit card number that is useful just for a few minutes. Because it's valuable, PHI can be sold for 10 times more expensive if compared with credit card data. And there is a vast market for this. PHI can be used to defraud the healthcare insurance by fake clinicals, for example, and can be used to carry out fraudulent prescriptions to obtain controlled medications using false IDs, for example. So this kind of information is really valuable. And I ask to you, how much do you think a hospital is willing to pay to get your halted system back to working? That's no price. The losses due to inoperative system are incalculable. And I ask to you too, how much costs a PHI from a notorious person, such as a politician or an important businessman? So there's no doubt the healthcare market is very interesting. Who wants to get rid with crime life? On the other hand, why so easy exploiting hospitals? First, it's not cultural in healthcare to think about cybersecurity. Healthcare staff are not educated on online risks, but to prioritize patient care. And come on, it's completely sensible. Other difficult is the number of devices used in hospitals. More and more technology being incorporated from many different manufacturers, it makes very hard to stay on top of security. And a very important point, the equipment vulnerability that permits these attacks. But why medical equipment are so vulnerable? For many factors. Because it's very expensive to keep your inventory actualized. I mean, to replace equipment regularly, so your inventory tends to be obsolete. Another point is that it's too expensive for just to upgrade the equipment for a new platform. For example, to update from Windows 7 to Windows 11, it's necessary to buy a full upgrade not just update the operational system. The regular patch updates for operational system are not allowed until it has been completely tested by the manufacturers. So it takes a long time and leave the equipment with a known vulnerability. And it's known for everywhere, including the attacker. Commonly, it's not allowed to install third-party security softwares like antivirus, what could give more security for the equipment. And it's common to use as a default password. Who knows at least some of these passwords writing below? Default for many manufacturers. Okay, but what patients care about it? How can it affect your life? Well, in many ways. Exploring a medical system as a hospital information system, for example, it's possible to change patient treatment, prescriptions, and all the exams agenda, for example. Entering remotely in equipment, it's possible to change a treatment, for example, a dosage in an infusion pump or a parameters set in a pacemaker. It can delay your diagnostics or treatments just for a lack of hospital researches, like information systems down. And your personal data can be used for extortions, financing, etc. So yes, patients can be severely affected by hospital cyber incidents. I would like to share with you what we are doing in Albert Einstein Hospital to improve our cybersecurity level used in medical technologies. All these follow examples I will give you is real cases implemented in hospital Albert Einstein hospitals in the last years, okay? So first, we make an exercise to know our deficiencies. We hired a company just to try attacking our equipment in a controlled way. We give just basic information to them, not the passwords and not the addresses, IP addresses, and he could attack from a place outside the hospital. As a result, we could know the main point of vulnerabilities and treat them. As we can see on these images, the attacker could get procedures, videos, and pictures in real life, execute commands on medical devices operational system, access patients' information, make unavailable medical equipment and hospital systems. So, in that point, we understood that we were in a very vulnerable ambient. So the first action was try to protect the network. Not each equipment, just because it's insane and very expensive, as we see in the first slides. So we segregate medical equipments in different virtual LANs, one per building. Each VLAN was protected with a firewall who controls the data traffic between different VLANs. So we define all the communication rules and give permission just for that communications. For example, ultrasound machine can just send images to a PAC server with a specific IP, with a specific virtual port. No other communication is allowed from or to ultrasound instead of sending images to PACs. So we put all these rules in these files, and we make the ambient more secure. It's very challenging to manage all these rules, of course, but we think that's a good way to protect the ambient, not specific each equipment. Another action was to start to evaluate security requisites in a time to purchase new technologies. I know this table is unreadable, and it's in Portuguese as well, but it shows the security requisites to be answered by the sellers who want to supply us. So we can evaluate if that option offered is secure enough to join our network. If not, this option is discarded from the competition. We give a huge score for security issues in purchasing process. Other action who brings good impact was creating a new committee to discuss information security in medical devices. It's composed by a multidisciplinary team. IT people from information security, from infrastructure, us, the clinical engineers, and also some doctors. And there are good ideas born in these meetings. And doing some specific actions too, like changing the full passwords on medical devices, improving inventory with information related to softwares, patches, network information as IP address, MAC address, and other informations that help us to manage all the security. We are trying to implement automatic software to do this, like Medgate, but we don't have this yet. We blocked USB ports from medical equipment. Unfortunately, it was common to see cell phones charging in an equipment USB port, or images being collected from equipment by an unauthorized person. We are using dedicated files for legacy equipments, small ones, just for that equipment who is very vulnerable and we can't update or replace in a short time. So we put a little firewall just to improving the security in that equipment. And also make investments to update or upgrade some equipment who has this option available. Just to finish, we can find out that our ambient is completely secure, even if we implement barriers, as the examples explained. It's very important to manage a plan for incident response. Just to give some highlights about this issue, it's important to have a trained and dedicated team to handle incident responses, implementing monitoring tools and practices to detect suspicious activities, implement alert mechanisms to quickly notify an incident and starting the plan, do a quickly containment, isolation, and disconnection of affected devices, work to understand the root causes and solving them quickly, work to recover and restore all systems and data affected, and debriefing the case just to learn and improve your incident response plan. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Petrick. It was an insightful presentation indeed. I would ask you kindly to stop sharing your screen, and this is the time for the speakers open their videos and we'll start to this exchange of our topics respectively. I will invite Nader addressing this specific topic. You share that about actually regarding the technology solution. And this process of addressing technology solutions, you emphasizes the key aspect between the synergy and coordination between CEDs and ITs. I would like you kindly share with us some final insightful contribution in this regard. As you mentioned, it is not easy, it's complex, but it is achievable. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the other presenters. That was very helpful and useful. I'll definitely take advantage of that and apply it. The challenge when what I've done is, as I said through my presentation, the biggest challenge is the gray area. How to eliminate the gray area. This is how you can have proper coordination and support from IT and eliminate the gaps. It's ownership. Historically, biomed and IT, clinical engineers and IT have always been pushing things away from them. When there's something related to the network, oh, it's not us, it's not biomed, you have to go to IT. And when you go to IT and it's related to a medical device, they will say, oh, it's not us, you have to go to biomed. And then things fall between the cracks and then everyone has a problem. The organization is at risk. So how do you eliminate that? What we did is we start communicating with our counterparts in IT and said, you know, we have the same goal to serve the patients, to make sure the patients are safe, the organization is safe. So you know what, let's draw the line. Anything related to the medical device, it's owned by biomed, it's owned by clinical engineers, in the sense that IT will never respond to calls related to medical devices unless the call is coming from clinical engineers. Meaning, if the end user wants to connect their ultrasound to the Wi-Fi instead of to the cable, the users cannot call IT to do that. They have to request that from clinical engineers. Clinical engineers will come in and evaluate the situation. If they need IT, now the IT's customer is actually the clinical engineer. It's not the end user. So by doing this manipulation, we own the problem and we're using IT as our resource to fulfill the need to serve our residents, our patients and our users. The same thing on the IT side. If it's an IT related, it's a software, it's something, and they might need biomed's help. Maybe they need a biomed, he's in the OR room, they need biomed to help in removing the all-in-one PC on the anesthesia machine or do something to that. The end user should not call biomed, they should call IT. It's an IT product. And then IT can call biomed, hey, we need your help, can you help with this? So by owning the problem, owning anything related to the issue, we were able to eliminate the gap. And guess what? Now we have direct coordination, direct cooperation. We are customers to each other and we're supporting each other by implementing this solution. And now the communication level is way higher. We are aware of what's going on in the organization. Both of us are communicating. We know what's going on. This helped tremendously when we implemented the advanced solutions like the Medigate in one of the organizations. It was simple because everyone is aware and we're working together versus fighting each other and saying, no, I have nothing to do with it. So my message is take ownership of your equipment, be responsible for that, and make IT is just one of the service providers that you use to support you in the integration part of it. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be here, and I'll be staying until the end of the session for any questions as well.
Thank you, Nader. Owning the problem, make you feel and be aware that everyone is part of the problem, own the problem and the solution. Thank you very much. Let's go now for Nana. Nana, all the picture, the great picture you shared with us today, make us clear that it's not just a matter of efforts, but also investment. And we think about the investment and cost, the budgeting, the financing. Of course, we think a bit more about the challenges for this. What are your comments in this regard to make achievable the solutions and the recommendations provided in your presentation?
Thank you. Yes, I'm aware that budgets can be a constraint, but as clinical engineers engaged in the conversation, if you're engaged in a conversation from the initial stages, we do know that technology has a lifetime of at least 10 years. And so in all the conversations, we can start to future-proof. So if we are aligned with the mission of the organization and are aligned with changes in regulation and changes in everything around as the societal expectations, then that is the conversation that we can take into the initial capital programs, where no one is thinking about in the next 5 years, we may want to have infusion pumps sending information to the EPR. Why don't we ensure that if there is an infusion pump today, which has been assessed as secure and has those capabilities, that is not at the forefront of what we're doing. And so it's about communicating and taking into consideration future plans, aligning with an organization's mission, and all these decisions should be also data-driven. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, to embrace the planning since the beginning and the coordination and communication at each step. Exactly. Thank you very much, Nana. Petrick, it's your turn now. You provided us very well our amazing path in this synergy between the digital solutions and the threats. Let's talk about a bit of challenges when we are under, and I know in the region, in the Latin American region, and also emerging countries regions, will know pretty well what we are talking about. We are under a stressful context all the time, and it's not new for us to have pressure, not just about budgeting, but also about timing and other social and economic pressure. So what about this control of threats, to make the plan of control of threats under a specific context of pressure, Petrick? What about the team when they are already under a context of enormous pressure, and at the same time they have the deadline to make the best plan regarding the threat?
Oh, thanks for the question. It's a very stressed situation always. We put efforts of everywhere, but we believe the simple solutions can worth a lot. So trying just to making solutions, easy solutions, not the expensive ones. It can worth a lot when we had some financial controls or financial limits. Of course, it's always a difficult way to manage it, but we are always working together to find a solution. As I mean, with IT persons, with the doctors and nurses, we are always talk together to find the best solutions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in this picture, the synergy between the diverse professionals in charge of that solution in some way, this synergy makes a difference if we think to deal with challenges under a specific complex context, no? And a stressful situation. Thank you very much. I have a question to Nader. Please, Nader, if you would like to answer the following question. In your experience, what has been one of the most interesting evidence or solution that you can share with us regarding this patient safety and cybersecurity, data security?
most probably you'll feel this is repeating myself, but it's the close relationship with information security from IT. We, as clinical engineers, do not have all the tools and the knowledge needed to protect the organization. Our equipment are advancing and the vulnerability is getting bigger and bigger. The key to be successful is very close relationship with information security to make sure that they are protecting the equipment without making it unusable. Because if you leave it just to information security, they will block the device and you will not be able to use it. You will find yourself that the central station is not working, the monitors are not communicating because they blocked all the connections, everything. So having that closer relationship and working together with them is the key solution. They will have their own solutions. It's an IT level solution. I wouldn't even think of, tell them that this is my problem. I will resolve the information security of the organization. It's not my job. But my job is to make sure I have an open communication, continuous communication with information security. If you don't have a good relationship with information security, you are at risk. It's as simple as that.
Thank you very much, Nader. Nana, the question for you is about the training and education of the teams. It seems that this is something so needed, the question says, but in your regard, what is the best first step if we would like to make a good plan of training of the teams in these topics?
So, as I mentioned, we are security and medical devices management. So as part of our day-to-day work in ensuring that equipment are safe, we become aware of these advances in the technology. And at every point, there is an opportunity to learn. And so some of the ways that we continue to learn is, for instance, if every Monday a system stops sending messages, when on the second incident, we have to be able to stop and think, is this connected to the network? Is it on the domain? Has there been any activity over the weekend which has resulted in this particular incident? Because often you may go try and switch it off, you look at the configuration, it starts working, and we do that really well. And so it's ongoing training, it's learning on the go. It's really important that we stop and reflect and learn based on our incidents that we've been dealing with, the trend analysis. But even though we talk about the team IT, it's important that we bring our caregivers along because they contribute to ensuring that the data is secure. And so educating them on, if you are using a system that sends data to another receiving system, can we ensure that it's reached that area? So enforcing some of these things using procedures. And so we all continue to learn. And that also helps with our secure decommissioning as well. So it's ongoing, it's continuous improvement. We learn from continuous improvement. We learn from incident trends. And there are formal education available as well, which we can undertake as clinical engineers. Introduction to network. There are various, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nana. Your turn, Petrick, and the question for you is about the hospital Albert Einstein. The colleague wants to know, in your opinion, what is the best achievement in data security that lately Albert Einstein can share?
Yes, for sure. There are some, I believe, but Albert Einstein is investing very hard in information security with a IT team very strong for information security and softwares too. I believe the achievement we can make an importance here is this working together with clinical engineering and the IT team. I believe it's the best way to work in a same way. So I believe what we have of more important here is this collaboration inter teams. I mean, IT team, clinical engineering, and all this stuff, all the users, all the coordinators. So I believe it's the best way to work together.
Thank you very much. I will kindly ask all the speakers to set on your videos, please. I appreciate the excellent contribution from each of you, Nader Hammoud, Nana Omod, Petrick Davoglio, at the ensuring patient safety and data security in the integration of digital health and clinical engineering. I am Rossana Rivas, IFMBE Clinical Engineering Division elected board member, and of course, I am delighted about this insightful and valuable contents you kindly share with us today. In behalf of IFMBE-CED, I celebrate the attendance that kindly was with us today and look forward to keeping communication and invite you all to join us in the next expert event. Don't forget that we are going to be publishing the video as well as the contents of these presentations in the web page of Clinical Engineering Division, IFMBE. Thank you very much. Have a good day, good morning, good night. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, Rosanna, thank you.
Thank you, Nana. Thank you, Nader. Thank you, Petrick. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.